Welcome along. Today we're doing a deep dive into some ideas from a source we're calling NISpod number 2.
That's right.
And it's really about trying to navigate, all the information, the speed of things, and how creativity fits in today.
Yeah, and that source, it introduces a pretty powerful term, hypernovelty.
Mm.
It really points to this, well, almost breakneck speed of new stuff appearing.
Mm.
Tools, platforms, ideas.
Everything, yeah.
It feels like it's coming at us faster than we can actually, absorb it properly.
Totally. That word hypernovelty, it just lands, doesn't it? The source even mentions how it can make your face twitch, which is quite a visceral image.
It is.
It captures that feeling of over or excessive, like we might want hyperfocus, maybe, but definitely not hyperactivity or hypervigilance or that hyperventilating feeling you get trying to keep up.
The everything everywhere all at once vibe hitting hard.
Exactly.
And the source definitely flags some potential downsides to this pace. Big ones. Well, the worry is that this constant flood, this hypernovelty, it sort of leads to losing interest. It chips away at motivation, maybe even our sense of purpose.
Ah, right. Because why pour yourself into making something if it feels
Like it'll be old news tomorrow. Or irrelevant.
Yeah.
It really makes you question the point of deep creative effort.
So the big question becomes, how do you stay grounded? How do you find your footing when everything feels like it's shifting and accelerating underneath you?
And that's where this counter idea comes in, also from the source. Tiny novelty.
Tiny novelty.
It's framed as maybe the amount of newness most people can actually handle. Not the tidal wave, but like a manageable trickle.
Right, a reasonable dose you can actually engage with, maybe mixed with some real focus time instead of just constant distraction.
Precisely. So instead of getting swept away by the hypercurrent.
You look for the smaller streams. And how does this connect back to actually creating things?
Well, the source suggests creative practices that kind of push back directly against hypernovelty's effects.
Okay, like what sort of practices?
Things that value iteration, building slowly, step by step, letting ideas evolve.
Right, not demanding instant perfection.
Exactly. And experimentation, trying things out without that immense pressure for immediate success. Also, really listening.
Deep listening, not just skimming the surface.
Yeah, which counters that superficiality hypernovelty encourages. And mindful production, creating with real intention, not just churning stuff out. And fundamentally, it talks about focusing on the quality of relationships, connecting with people involved in the process rather than just broad, shallow reach.
All those things inherently mean slowing down, engaging more deeply, the opposite of hyper.
You got it. They require a different pace.
And there's this fascinating example the source uses, a film from way back.
Yeah, a 1968 animated short documentary called Why Man Creates. Won an Oscar, apparently.
No, 1968, so quite old.
But the source argues its insights are incredibly relevant now, maybe even more relevant because of hypernovelty.
Why is that? What does it show?
Well, the film, as the source described it, it really highlights that creativity isn't just about, say, practical need. It's also driven by deep curiosity, by play, finding purpose.
Okay.
And it shows how genuinely new ideas often face resistance at first. You need persistence.
That feels relevant. And you mentioned something about it being messy.
Absolutely key, especially now. The creative process is shown as fundamentally nonlinear. It's full of seeming dead ends, false starts, humor. It can look chaotic.
Not the neat instant result hypernovelty kind of implies or demands.
Not at all. And the film apparently champions fooling around, that playful exploration. It says it's not wasted time. It's crucial for original thinking.
I like that. Fooling around is crucial.
And ultimately, the source points to the film's closing thought, that creation at its core is about self-expression and legacy, leaving something meaningful.
So that's the contrast, isn't it? The overwhelm of hypernovelty potentially killing purpose versus this idea of tiny novelty and embracing these, timeless, human, messy, creative ways of working.
Exactly. It kind of reminds us that creation isn't always about speed or going viral instantly. It's a process, often slow, iterative, needs patience and play, just like that 1968 film showed.
So maybe think about how hypernovelty shows up for you. Does it feel like too much sometimes? Does it affect your own drive to create things?
And maybe ask yourself, where could you consciously seek out or prioritize that tiny novelty, those smaller bits of newness, or lean into those more purposeful, maybe slower creative practices?
And here's a final thought pulled from the source. If creation really is about self-expression and legacy, how does the sheer speed of hypernovelty affect our ability to make things that feel truly meaningful, truly lasting.
Yeah, and why might focusing on the process itself, the iteration, the relationships, the messy bits, why might that be more important right now than ever before? Something to chew on.